The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
He basically said divorce was not an option.
So he didn't want to get divorced. Did he tell you what he wanted to do?
Yes.
What did he say?
He mentioned his plan to get rid of her. He got on top of her, and that's when I first saw him stabbing her with a knife.
This morning, we take you inside the Opair affair murder trial through the eyes of someone who's faced this same high-profile judge before. Plus, an emotional letter from a beloved TV star supporting her husband. So will Melissa Gilbert's words sway the judge in her husband Timothy Busfield's case? The actor due in court today, we're previewing the coverage. Plus, we've got two defendants in two different states, but eerily similar stories. We're spotlighting the parallels we're seeing between Paul Canero and Alec Murdaugh. Also, former battalion chief Kevin West testifies in his own defense. So will he walk free? We'll talk about it. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Tuesday morning to you, and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. I hope you had a wonderful long weekend. We missed you here at Court TV. I missed you so much, and guess what? My team and I put together an awesome show for you to start off the court week. So we're going to kick it off today as we always do. Grab that cup of coffee. It's time for my opening statement. It is stunning. The alleged facts in the Opair affair murder trial are stunning. You have an IRS agent who allegedly wants to murder his wife so that he can be with the au pair. According to the au pair, Mr. Taxman is too cheap to cough up the money for a divorce, so he decides to kill his wife. Money and lust motivating a murder isn't anything new, right, my friends? But what makes this case especially sickening and especially sinister is the suffering that the defendant allegedly wanted his wife to experience before she was killed. According to both the au pair's testimony and the digital evidence, Brendan Banfield wanted his wife, Christine, to be terrorized, assaulted, and raped by a strange man right before her death. And when you stop and think about that, it shows incomprehensible depravity. You know, I was thinking about this with all the wild, salacious facts about sex, fantasies, catfishing, and fetishes. What I think has really gotten overshadowed, my friends, is just how violent and vicious this alleged plot was. This was more than a murder plot. This was allegedly designed to make the last moments of Christine Banfield's life filled with horror. It was allegedly designed to trick an innocent man into thinking that he's having consensual sex. But really, he was going to be ambushed and treated like his life didn't matter. This alleged plot was so cruel, so callous, so cowardly. I think it is a crying shame that Virginia doesn't have the death penalty. Because if Brendan Banfield did what the Commonwealth of Virginia says he did, then he most certainly deserves it. That's my opening statement on this Tuesday morning. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket. Matt Woolley, you rock.
Did you put your wife in a rear naked chokehold and strangle her to death?
No.
Did you do anything to cause the contusion on the back of her head?
No, I did not.
Did you do anything to cause Marcy's death?
No, I did not.
In Washington, we are on a verdict watch in the cheating fire chief murder trial for defendant Kevin West. Deliberations resume at noon Eastern time. And before that, we're going to be playing the unaired testimony from the defendant at 9 a.m. In New Jersey, we've got the state's case continuing in the Mansion murders case for defendant Paul Canero. Court's going to start back up at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. And in Texas, we've got testimony resuming at 9 a.m. Eastern in the Uvalde school massacre trial for former police officer Adrian Gonzalez. Right now, we turn to your top story as the Commonwealth is expected to rest today in the Opair affair murder trial for defendant Brendan Banfield. And this morning, what we want to do on opening statements is pull back the curtain, take you behind the scenes of this high-profile trial. This Virginia courtroom is underneath a national spotlight once again. If the judge looks familiar to you, she should. This is the same judge who presided over Johnny Depp's civil trial that he won. The case against his former girlfriend, Amber Heard. Judge Penny Azcarate is the judge presiding over this case. She served as a Marine. That's right, she served in our military, and she was appointed to the position of chief judge.
If we could have 5 minutes for him to look at the photos, it would eliminate the need for me to say, offer into evidence, offer into evidence.
That's something to do before trial. Court starts at 10. We have the jury ready.
I am asking that if we can take a few minutes for his client to review them, it would expedite the process of admitting them into evidence. They would be able to admit without objection.
If you could do it right now, right here, I'm not going anywhere. We're ready to start trial.
So what's it like? What's the environment like when you try a high-profile case like this one? What's it like in this courthouse, in the courtrooms? What's it like practicing before Her Honor? Well, guess what? We have the perfect guest joining us to talk about all of that. Celebrity attorney, that's right, lead counsel, who represented Johnny Depp and won that case, attorney Ben Chu, on the show today. Ben, good morning to you. Let's start, if we can, please, about whether when you're watching this trial now, does it take you back? Are you getting flashbacks? I think a lot of people are wondering, are you glad it's not you in the courtroom this time?
Good morning, Julie. Good to see you again. Yes, I am getting flashbacks. She is, as you mentioned, Chief Judge Azcarate is just an outstanding judge. She served in the Persian Gulf War in 1991 as a Marine, as you mentioned. She was the first woman chief judge appointed in Fairfax. She is tough as nails, smart as a whip, and woe be to the attorney who is not fully prepared going before her.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. We learned through your trial, you have to know the rules of evidence before Her Honor, or you won't get that evidence in. We know. I remember watching Amber Heard's attorney struggling and not knowing objections to make and how to respond to the objections that you and your team were making. This is a good judge, as you said, Ben. So let's talk a little bit about the jury, if we can, please. What's it like to pick a jury in Fairfax County? How are the juries typically in your experience?
Well, our case, the Depp v. Heard, was a little unusual in the sense that all of the potential jurors wanted to be served. So we thought we would go through dozens of witnesses who give the usual laundry list of excuses as to why serving would be an undue hardship. But in our case, perhaps because of the celebrities involved and the interest that was generated, everybody wanted to serve. So we ended up picking a jury fairly quickly. In this case, I think it was a little more protracted. But again, Chief Judge Azcarate doesn't play a lot of games. She doesn't allow a lot of participation by the lawyers, and she picks it. She has the jury picked with alacrity. So it all happens pretty fast.
I would say so. It's great to look back at this video. What a whirlwind that must have been for you. And it's interesting how your concerns in that case are different perhaps from these concerns these lawyers have been, as you had, a very high profile, one of the world's biggest stars who you were representing. And as you mentioned, people might want to get on that jury. In a case like the Opair affair murder trial, we don't have celebrities involved. We just have a very high-profile case that's making headlines way beyond the world of true crime. So, ideally, you want the jurors who can be fair, be impartial, follow the evidence. And, Ben, I want to start by looking at some of that evidence with you now, some of the most key evidence coming from the Opair. We know that she's the star witness for the Commonwealth. Here's a clip from her cross-examination.
I would do anything for you. if they want me to turn against you, if they think or whatever they believe, and if they want to blame me for that, that's okay. I can take the blame. I'll never do anything to hurt you or against you.
Well, so the au pair here, star witness for the Commonwealth. We know that she's a bad actor too. Ben, would you talk to us please about, if you're in the position of the Commonwealth, how you deal with someone like this for your jury so that she becomes palatable enough for them to believe her testimony and not hold the whole case against her?
Well, Julie, that's a great question. And as you know, prosecutors often have to deal with tarnished witnesses because they're the ones who know, what happened with the defendant. So under no circumstances is she going to be, is the au pair going to be a likable witness, since, as you said, she was involved in the plot and directly participated, allegedly, in the gruesome murders. But I think she was credible enough. She didn't have a lot of affect. She was somewhat robotic, but I don't think that really matters. They did the cross. They said you did a deal, but I think it is enough for the Commonwealth to get across the line with these 12 jurors.
Mm-hmm. And Ben, you teach trial advocacy too. Tell me a little bit about what you would emphasize in the close with respect to the au pair and the believability of her testimony, also acknowledging the bad things that she did do.
Well, I think in closing, you just, go back to your opening, say this is what we promised the evidence would show, and in fact, this is exactly what we delivered. And you don't have to lionize her or make her a heroine, but just to portray the defendant as the primary evildoer here. I mean, let's remember, she is very culpable, but she is a young girl. And when you have an au pair, you are in loco parentis. So it really was the primary responsibility. The one who hatched the plot, the one who was the adult, he is the one who is most culpable. And she's not getting off the hook either. I mean, she had to plead guilty to manslaughter, so she's not getting a free ride here. So I think the Commonwealth will be able to put forward a very compelling closing argument. The evidence is overwhelming, and there's just not a lot of sympathy to be had. And I going back to your outstanding opening statement, I think the defendant is extremely lucky that Virginia no longer has the death penalty. It used to be among the top 3 in frequency of death penalty, along with Texas, Florida. Virginia used to be number 3, but as you say, it's been abolished. And so I think he's very fortunate.
He really is very fortunate, and thank you for those kind compliments, Ben. That means so much coming from you. Stand by kindly, please. We're going to hit our first break of the hour. Next on Opening Statements, we're taking you to Hollywood. We're talking about the case against Emmy award-winning actor Timothy Busfield. His wife, TV star Melissa Gilbert, showing her support, writing a letter to the judge. Will it work? Plus, the chilling parallels between these 2 high-profile defendants, Paul Canero and, yep, you guessed it, Alec Murdaugh.
He stabbed his nephew Jesse multiple times in his upper body and threw his arm into his chest. And he stabbed his niece Sophia 17 times over her entire 45-pound body.
The Court TV podcast will return.
Welcome back. Let's talk about actor Timothy Busfield. He's trending this morning in the world of true crime as the actor and director will be edited out. That's right, edited out of an upcoming movie. So that news is he's preparing to be in court today. He's got a pretrial detention hearing set to start at 4 p.m. Eastern. A judge is going to determine whether he should remain in custody or get a bond ahead of his upcoming trial. Prosecutors are seeking for him to stay behind bars. He's facing charges of alleged criminal sexual contact with a minor. To make matters worse, Busfield's role has been scrubbed from the romantic comedy You Deserve Each Other. This after the actor was removed from a recent episode of Law & Order SVU. Now, as far as his legal future goes, we're asking the question this morning, should he stay behind bars? Let's talk about it with our guests. In the studio with me, I want to welcome in private investigator J.P. Miller, and still with us, joining us remotely, attorney Ben Chu. All right, so J.P., I'll go to you first. Your thoughts on the bond. Should he get a bond today or stay behind bars?
I think he absolutely does. His defense introduced a new motion that attacks the state's allegations very, very, very well. The state alleges several different, almost racketeering type allegations with a pattern of this sexual pattern that I personally don't agree is accurate, based off of prior histories of interactions with two different females who are older. These new allegations are with juvenile boys. It's not substantiated from what I've seen in the evidence. The defense strictly attacks it and attacks it and attacks it, even destroys the law enforcement detectives' own witnesses. So I think that's a problem for the state.
Interesting. Okay, so you're saying give him the bond. If you're the judge, give him the bond. All right, Ben Chu, what do you say? Should he get a bond or stay behind bars?
I think JP's analysis is right on point. I suspect that the judge will allow him a bond. It'll be a substantial bond, but I think he will get out of jail.
So when we think about what the judge can consider, you both know this, but I want to do a little, this is a great little crash course in bond for our wonderful courties at home. So the judge is going to look at the severity of the charges, any past criminal history. With him, my understanding, it's a big goose egg. He doesn't have a criminal past, so that's very good for him. The judge will look at whether he's a danger to the community. So that's where questionable arguments come in. So JP, on that one, you might have prosecutors saying, well, look, we have all these victims coming forward. We argue he is a danger to the community if he's let out. What would the defense argument be?
So these are very, very serious charges. The issue is there has been no evidence to corroborate this that has been introduced to court so far. There has been a private investigation of these allegations previously, and the other offenses that are mentioned in the state's pretrial detention hearing, that was a civil case. Those were never prosecuted. So they're using that as their argument, but he was never prosecuted for that. He was never charged for that. So I think that's a problem for the state.
Yeah, really good points, JP. Ben, you know, a final point. We know bond's not supposed to be punitive. We know that. So that's working for the defense. Your thoughts on whether the defense has an argument here with Tim Busfield's celebrity? If they can say something like, look, Judge, you know, this isn't a guy who's, you know, going to abscond. We know, of course, showing up for court is what the main purpose of bond is. So do you think there's an argument that he's not a guy who's going to go away, and if he does try to get away, somebody's going to see him?
Yeah, I do. I think the defense has to be a little bit careful about how they phrase that. They don't want to suggest to the judge that he should be afforded special treatment because of his celebrity status. But I think they can make the point that he is well known, his wife is well known, his wife is in his corner, so he is not likely. He has every incentive to stay and appear for trial and to try to vindicate himself. So as long as they don't push that button too hard, I think that can be an effective argument for a bond here.
That's an excellent point, Ben. And I'm so glad you brought up his wife, Melissa Gilbert. Let's talk about her now. So she's asking the judge in a letter, saying in part, quote, I only want this extraordinary man safe and whole, so I will be close by, asking you to please, please take care of my husband, as he's my protector. I am his, but I cannot protect him now, and I think that more than anything else is what is truly breaking my heart. I'm relying on you to protect him for me. Again, she writes a letter to the judge. Her letter's among 70 letters of support. More letters coming also from Busfield's stepson, Michael, and from his former 30-something co-stars, Ken Olin and Peter Horton. So let's talk about how the judge should consider the letters from the public and the letter from his wife. What weight should the judge give these? Ben, I'll start with you. Your thoughts, please.
I think the letter from his wife is very telling because obviously she's the person closest to him, but she will also be the one who would de facto be monitoring him. I thought it was a particularly eloquent letter. Her lawyers may or may not have had some hand in that, but I thought it was quite seemed quite sincere, and I think it was quite moving. So I do think this will help him.
Yes. JP, what do you think about the letters?
I agree it will be helpful, but at the end of the day, the judge is going to rely on the facts. And I think if the defense argues very clearly what they filed in their motion, I think they will be successful. The letters also show ties to the community, even though his wife, I don't believe they live locally, but other support letters could provide that community ties needed.
Right. You know, and that's a great point, too, about the living situation. If they're living in Hollywood, the judge would have to put some restrictions on his travel, where he may be. Ben, do you think perhaps electronic monitoring or some type of check-ins with local probation, maybe what the judge does here with him?
Yes, Julie, I think that would be appropriate, and I think something like that will be ordered.
Yeah, the judge, that's a great point you brought up, JP. You know, I wasn't even thinking about this when this is another state. If he doesn't have a residence there, this may be interesting how the judge will craft this if he's inclined to give him a bond. So that's something to certainly pay attention to today. Again, Timothy Busfield will be in court. We will be covering the case. We'll bring you updates as they come in. Ben Chu, JP Miller, great talking to you. Stay with us, please. We'll hit a break. When we come back, here's what's next on Opening Statements.
My emotions went back and forth because we had so many problems that were unresolved that I was sad, I was frustrated, I was angry about that. But there's also someone I loved for a lot of years. Sorry.
Timothy West, or defendant Kevin West, rather, getting emotional on the stand. That's coming up. But first, we got 2 cases of betrayal and greed, the similarities between defendants Paul Canero and Alec Murdaugh.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
He began making plans that were executed about 8 hours later when he snuck out of the house in the middle of the night in his white Porsche Macan. And you know how those plans ended. Greed and desperation. Is that it wasn't so much about what the defendant stood to gain from Keith and his family's deaths as it was what he stood to lose. What he stood to lose had they lived.
Welcome back. This morning, we're shining our spotlight on New Jersey, where the trial of Paul Canero continues this morning. According to prosecutors, Canero murdered his brother, his sister-in-law, his little niece and nephew back in November of 2018. They also allegedly burned his brother's mansion and then set fire to his own mansion afterwards. They claimed the motivation was money for the crimes. And the more we watch, the more he's reminding us of someone else. You guessed it. Alec Murdaugh. Rich guy to the world, living beyond his means, puts himself in a financial mess to try to avoid the consequences, murders his family, and then pretends his family was victimized.
I didn't do right by Natasha Thomas. I took money from Natasha Thomas that didn't belong to me, and I was wrong for doing that. Okay. And I admit that. But in all these financial situations, I stole money that was not my money. I misled people that I shouldn't have misled, and I did wrong. I stole money that wasn't mine, and I shouldn't have done it. Right. And it was terrible what I did.
Now, if the facts alleged against defendant Paul Canero are true, then it sounds like we've got some birds of a feather. Let's talk about these two. Do you at home see the similarities? Hit us up on social media. Let us know. I want to welcome back in our guests, private investigator JP Miller and attorney Ben Chu. All right, so Ben, I'll start with you, please. Do you see similarities between these two characters?
I do. Only the accent is different, but I think on the facts, it's just about the same.
Yes. JP, how about you?
It does seem very, very the same. The only difference that I will see is I think Canero is more of a monster. The issues of him attacking the children the way that he did, the stabbing over 17 times, stabbing in the face, that's heinous. That's absolutely disgusting. Not glorifying anything that Murdaugh did at all, but those were quick shootings. These stabbings, the kids, that's slow. They suffered, they inhaled smoke, and there's proof of that alleged by the state.
Right. You know, that's an excellent point. You're giving me chills as you're talking, JP. For anybody who missed it, the medical evidence at autopsy showed that the children were alive after the stabbings and breathing in that smoke, as you said, as the fire was set. So their deaths were probably very painful, excruciating, and terrifying. We have that moment in the court where this is talked about. Let's listen to it together now.
The evidence will show that Jesse and Sophia were still alive and breathing after their uncle repeatedly stabbed them. Still alive and breathing after their uncle set fire to their home and left them. Still alive and breathing as the smoke began to rise from the basement. And that, you will learn, is how those two children spent the final moments of their lives.
Look at those precious little babies. Those are the beautiful niece and nephew who were murdered. And can you imagine the terror if they knew who was stabbing them, if they knew, and if it was Paul Canero? We don't know that it was. State of New Jersey, sure it was. They say it was him. They've accused him here. To your point, JP, yes, I'm in agreement with you. He may be even worse than Alec Murdaugh. Ben, what do you say to that? Your thoughts, please.
Yeah, I'm glad JP mentioned that. That makes this series of crimes particularly heinous. I mean, to do this to little children like that, it's absolutely unspeakable.
It really is. These two defendants, I think what's really so scary to me, you know, and I remember my mother teaching me this as a little girl, and she used Ted Bundy as the example. She was saying, you know, strangers who might look like they're harmless and seem nice and have a nice personality can be very dangerous. Don't talk to strangers, even if they're friendly and have a good you know, persona about them. And you see these two, and Murdaugh especially, because we've heard him speak. He's got that Southern accent. He's very endearing when he talks. He comes off so sincere, but we know he's a dangerous killer. Canero, I don't know if he's going to speak. I haven't heard him speak yet, but from what we understand, he was living a pretty normal life, kind of a fast life, high spending lifestyle. Let's look at some of the things he was buying. Apparently, he had 3 Porsche leases at the time of these incidents. Totaled them up. There you have it. Spending a lot of money at Tiffany's. The sales associates there liked him. And 2017, my gosh, his expenses, just his expenses in the year 2017 were over $400,000, up from the year before, over $300,000. So both these guys kind of living high off the hog, so to speak. JP, you know, the different persona to the world versus them privately. You know, I'm sure you see this in investigations you do. Sometimes defendants put on this face and they seem really great, but then what's behind closed doors is super sinister.
And I think that's what we see here. You know, you had these alpha-dominated homes on both sides of these families, whether it's Murdaugh or Canero, and when the loss or potential loss of the public image, so to speak, I think that's what also motivated these killings on both sides. It's not just the money, but it's also that public imagery that they want to persuade the public that they didn't do anything wrong and they're innocent or they're victims. And we saw that how both of them try to control the narratives and direct law enforcement in different directions.
Right. I think you hit the nail right on the head. Ben, what do you think about that? That yes, money could be motivation in both of these cases. Murdaugh case, it was proven. Canero's in progress. But the idea that the public might perceive them differently. For defendants like these guys, that hits home, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, I think people can relate to others living beyond their means. We all know people who live beyond their means, but they don't go on to commit heinous murders. And so obviously there is a line crossed, you know, via the sociopath, and it's not readily apparent to the naked eye. That's what's so fascinating and terrifying about these cases, is they seem so normal. They seem like people we could know, but they are not.
You're right, Ben. Yeah, I think that's what's so terrifying, you know, and you see they're both parents, so they're both dads, they're both husbands. And as you said, yeah, people get into financial trouble all the time, but to resort to homicides, and Murdaugh definitely did them. Canero's questionable, as we know. But one thing that really strikes me in these cases, JP, is how in both of them, somebody was on to them with their mismanagement of the finances. And I know we're going to hear more in Canero, but it seemed like in Murdaugh, it was like as soon as the squeeze was really on him and that pressure started mounting, that then the spiraling happened. Do you think this is kind of what's going on with Canero, with his brother Keith catching on to money from the family business being taken?
Absolutely. In both instances, it's like a pressure cooker waiting to explode.
It's a good analogy.
And when it happens, this is the result. You're, you know, the prosecution kind of said that this is methodical, but I don't really think it was super methodical. I mean, I see a crisis that they're seeing in their heads. These individuals reacting as such, and because it's not methodical, because it isn't a crisis and danger, and it needs to happen now, that's why it got sloppy, and that's how both of these individuals got caught.
Right. I love what you said about the pressure cooker. We know Murdaugh wanted to tell his story to the world. I mean, he's still behind bars, trying to say he's innocent and didn't do these crimes, and trying to get another bite at the apple and get his trial overturned. We know all that's still in progress. You wonder if he regrets testifying, or if he would do it again, and if Paul Canero is going to testify. Ben, what do you think? Do you think we'll see Paul take the stand?
Such a great question. You know, the conventional wisdom is that he won't, that it won't be in his interest, that there are just too many holes that the prosecution could poke. So I will bet no.
I think that's a good, safe bet. And Ben, if you're advising him, let's say you were his trial counsel, would you advise him against taking the stand?
Yes, I would. I think the cross-examination would be absolutely brutal. And, you know, what JP mentioned, I'd start with the kids.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And he does not want to be in the hot seat for that. We're thinking about those beautiful children, that whole family that was taken out by someone. The trial of Paul Canero rolls on today. And we're rolling on here on Opening Statements. Coming up next, don't go away. Here's what we've got.
Would you describe your behavior as violent or aggressive or deliberate? How would you describe it?
No, deliberate and concerned. Yeah.
And do you try not to hurt it?
Absolutely.
The cheating fire chief took the stand. We've got all of his testimony to show you. And after the break, we're talking about whether he may go free. Be right back.
This is the Court TV podcast.
Kevin, did you put your wife in a rear naked chokehold and strangle her to death?
No.
Did you do anything to cause the contusion on the back of her head?
No, I did not.
Did you do anything to cause Marcy's death?
No, I did not.
Turning to the jury to give those answers, Kevin West testifying in his own defense. We are minutes away from watching every single minute of the unaired footage of that testimony. We've got it for you here at Court TV. Jury deliberations are going to resume at noon Eastern. So remember, the judge has restrictions on us. We can film, and only after the court day is over can we broadcast it. So with the long weekend, we haven't shown his testimony yet. So you're going to see it all this morning on Court TV Live. Now, there's really a lot to unpack here. Kevin West is accused of murdering his wife, Marcy. And in addition to his testimony, there were several other impactful moments. Let's take a look together now.
What reluctance did Kevin West convey to you about divorcing Marcy?
financial, losing half of his stuff and half of his pension.
They never had a lot of displays of affection with company, right? So, but I noticed that there was just a lot of tension in the household.
I believe Kevin and Marcy loved each other. I think they grew out of being in love.
Did he say something to you about Marcy's passing?
Yes.
What did he say?
That he was relieved and that a burden had been lifted off his shoulders.
Kevin called in the morning to tell me that Marcy had passed away during the night.
Did Kevin say that receiving some money would be helpful?
Yes.
And what is the current, are you and Kevin West in a romantic relationship? Yes. And what is the current state of your relationship?
We're engaged.
And you say that that's what you would do every time?
Every time. Not in the same order, but right there.
So your testimony today is that you would do this every time?
Every time.
All right, so who was the most impactful witness for you in this case so far? And what do you think about Kevin West making the decision to testify? How about that? Let's talk about it all. Let's bring back in J.P. Miller and Ben Chu. All right, so let's start with the witnesses. So we've seen some witnesses take the stand. Some have been better than others. JP, you were just telling me off camera, you think the medical examiner's testimony is really huge here for both sides. Kind of dive into why you think that, please.
Yeah, so during a trial, most times when a medical examiner gets on, they either win the jury or they lose them because they're falling asleep. So it's really about how they portray it and present to the jury. But the aspect of if they believe the medical examiner and the injuries, then they very well may convict. The issues with the medical examiner is there had to be a second autopsy. She had to be confronted by additional witnesses like, hey, after your autopsy was complete, bring the body back because she may have been murdered. And then that's what we have. And so I think there's some issues.
Right.
So whether the jury, even if they do believe the medical examiner, there could have been injuries that were sustained to the body during transport, during the actual autopsy itself. So I think those are hurdles that are actually good for the defense. But I truthfully believe it could go either way.
Yeah, excellent points, JP, because for anybody maybe not following this case or if you're unfamiliar, in the first autopsy, everybody thought this was just a seizure that caused the death, largely based on his statements, the responders encountering him trying to save her. And then it wasn't until investigators got suspicious that, wait a second, suddenly he's moved on with this other woman. We're hearing a lot of noise. Let's do another autopsy and be sure. And then she's seeing the marks on the front of the neck that indicate that Marcy West was manually strangled to death. I have a clip from the ME. This is where she's saying it couldn't have been the massage that killed Marcy. Let's look.
The location of the contusion is, part of it is over a bony prominence, which is not a focus of a tissue massage. If there is slow, continual pressure of the tissue sufficient to cause bleeding in the muscles, I would expect there to be injury to the skin surface.
Oh, okay, so she's saying could not be, you don't massage bones. And then in comes the son, Kevin and Marcy West's son, who looks just like his dad, comes in as a defense witness and says it was this, high pressure massage that he gave the night before that Marcy needed because of suffering she has with headaches and a long history of headaches. And he didn't mention it when he was initially questioned, but look, they were in a lot of shock. This is a terrible time. He lost his mom. Clearly, he's siding with dad for this jury. This poor young man loses mom, could lose dad too, to prison, depending on what the jury does. Ben, tell me, how impactful do you think the son and his testimony will be with the jury?
I think it's extremely helpful for the defense, and it helps counteract some of the really damning testimony some of the other witnesses gave. I mean, who says that he's relieved when his wife dies, or that it's a relief of a financial burden? And, you know, he's already involved and engaged to another woman. I think all of that is extremely damaging, offset somewhat by the son and somewhat by his own testimony. I think his decision to take the stand is probably a good one. He comes across as fairly credible, but I agree with JP. I think this one could go either way.
Yeah, I really can, Ben. And I want to ask you about that. The decision Kevin West made to testify, we were all wondering, and then we get the news late on Friday, and I can't wait to see it. None of us have seen it. This is brand new footage. We're going to be airing at 9 a.m. Tell me, JP, when it comes to saving himself, I don't know who's in a better position to do that in a trial like this. What do you think about him taking that chance?
I think there's a good chance because he's comes off as believable. If he's able to interact with the jury, that gives him to soften the blows that he's been taking and taking and taking. You know, he's been made to seem like a terrible, terrible person, which he may be, but this is his opportunity to tell his side of the story, say what happened, and explain his case.
Yeah, definitely. Even just that little clip got me so interested to see, Ben, you teach trial advocacy, as he's turning to give those answers to the jury with the questions. That tells me that somebody did a lot of prep work with him. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. He looked at the jury, but he didn't linger too long with the jury because that can be off-putting. I thought he was very well, maybe coached is too strong a word, but I thought his whole affect was quite convincing.
Yes, well prepared. And on a case like this, Ben, you know, when you know this defendant's looking at potentially life in prison if he's convicted, and when you weigh those risks with a client, would you think that this may be worth the risk to get up there?
Absolutely. And Julie, as you know, and it's his choice. I mean, ultimately, it's completely up to the client whether he wants to testify. He seems quite confident, and I think it may be a good bet for him.
Definitely. JP, I think that this is a smart decision for him to roll the dice. I think rarely do defendants help themselves, but every now and again you get a case where, look, he's the last person to see her, you know, alive and deceased, to try to save her life. There's documentation of it. He's a firefighter. He's got a history of service. I think there's a lot going in his favor. Not in his favor is the fact that we know he was cheating and had the mistress for many, many years, and he was planning to leave Marcy on that day. Tell me what you're most looking forward to seeing when it comes time for his cross.
I think they're going to attack him severely on the lack of intervention. He's a battalion chief. He has all this medical history and training and experience. The same things that make him credible to the jury could be discredited very easily just by not rendering care.
Yeah. Great insight from you both. We'll leave it there for now. That's all for opening statements. JP Miller, Ben Chu, thank you both so much. And thank you at home for being with us. If you like the episode, watch it again. We put them up on our website, courttv.com, every day there for you. That's all for this episode of Opening Statements, my friends. I'm your host, Julie Grant, and it's been great being with you. On this show, I am calling out any pants on fire moments in our big trials and true crime stories, and I want you to come along with me. Opening Statements is live every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern on Court TV. Thank you for downloading this episode. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. You can watch past shows anytime you like on courttv.com.